Okay, well, welcome everybody to the Transporting New Zealand webinar on compliance and roading update with the Police Commercial Vehicle Safety Team and NZTA. We may still have more people joining us over the next few minutes, but we'll get things underway. First thing is, my name is Mark Stockdale, Policy and Advocacy Advisor at Transporting New Zealand. Firstly, we have begun recording this webinar, and we will be publishing the recording as well as the PowerPoint slides on our portal from next week. So just quickly, the agenda for today is that the first speaker is Inspector Scott Richardson from the CVST, and he will just be giving a bit of an update on the nationwide rollout of the roadside oral drug testing regime. And he will be, after that, we will have a questions and answers. He will then be followed by Senior Sergeant Brian Anderson, also from CVST, and his focus is going to be on the new 50 max pro forma enforcement, the removal of the 50 max permits, and then again we will then have some Q&A after his presentation. And our third speaker is Mark Owen, the Regional Manager for NZTA, and he's going to give us an update on Wellington roading projects. And so for all of our guests, if you have any questions, please put these in the chat. And as I said, after each speaker, we will then look to answer some of those questions. We're probably not going to be able to get through them all. And so we will follow up with those questions, and we will put those to the relevant speakers, and we will look to publish answers to those questions next week when we put the presentation and the recording up on our website. Okay, so we'll kick things off. Inspector Scott Richardson from the CVST. Scott, if you'd like to share your screen.
Okay. Right, can everyone see that all right? You see that, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, welcome everybody. I'm Scott Richardson. I'm the National Deployment Manager for the Commercial Vehicle Safety Team. I'm not sure, some of you may remember me, we did an earlier presentation in the build-up to this with Transporting New Zealand with Glenn Dobson from Drug Testing Agency, and that was about the technical specifications of the ins and outs of what the drug testing was going to look like. But now it's rolled out, so everyone should have a fair idea what's happening. What's happened in the drug testing space is we have 50,000 a year that we will be doing nationwide, but in the build up to that, to July 1st, we were able to do a lot of testing. We actually did a soft launch back in February of this year, and the reason we had to do a soft launch is all our drunk driving forms are done on our phones, and when the oral fluid testing process started, there was a catch-up period with the IT. So initially it was all paper-based, which slowed us down and meant that we did a soft launch. That soft launch was done in Wellington and with CVST up through Central as well. So those IT solutions were worked out, and we went live with the full nationwide rollout on July 1st. Right, and what we've seen so far, just giving an update where we were in that lead-up period to July 1st nationwide, the New Zealand Police did just over 4,500 oral fluid tests, and of those 4,500, 13% of them were done by CVST. bearing in mind that that 4,500 were predominantly Wellington and Central, so very small numbers, but a very large proportion of them were done by CVST. Out of the 20, we had 20 positive tests out of our first 1,212 oral fluid tests, and that's a positivity rate of 1.7%, which is almost half it is just under half of the national average, which has been 3.3%. From July 1st, we've had 10 positive tests out of 600, and that's, again, about a rate of 1.7%. So when we're looking at the industry as a whole and the results as a whole, it's pretty good news so far. It seems that the testing that CVST are doing, which sits between 10 and 15% of the nation's total, we're actually seeing less failures than the broader population. So that's a good sign. The drivers can refuse to undergo the tests. We haven't seen a lot of that. Initially, there was a lot of resistance, but as the information's got out with the number of refusals, which was quite high for a start, nearly 50% has dropped away, and now we're getting people that tend to engage in the system. What we're finding so far is predominantly methamphetamine and cannabis is the main ones people are failing on, but we have also had cocaine and MDMA failures come through the CVST staff. We haven't had any real issues with delays. I think it's the nature of CVST work. There's often a CBIR involved, so it's not a 10-second interaction like a highway patrol or a booze bus type scenario. So I think the drivers are pretty much used to that. But if they start eating, drinking, or smoking, that actually delays the process because we've got to allow time for the saliva in the mouth to regenerate. So it's one of the things that we've done so far. This is just some of the anecdotal examples we've had. We've had an HMV driver test positive for cannabis and cocaine. The cocaine limit is 25 nanograms per milliliter of saliva. That driver tested with 16,000. So we are seeing quite high results in some areas. Another driver who ended up not being present for a workplace drug test later was tested positive for methamphetamine. And here in Nelson, we had the reverse. We had someone who refused the oral fluid test and then got dropped back to work and underwent a work drugs test and failed for methamphetamine. So we've had that. We've also had a driver who smokes cannabis to help him sleep, failed the next morning. And we've also had a methamphetamine measurement of 23,000 when the limit is 25. And bear in mind that 25 is, New Zealand's one of the few countries in the world where we're actually testing for impairment. We're not testing for presence. In Australia, they test for any level. We actually were interested in impaired drivers. And so we built it. They built that, freeboard into the system. And we're still getting those very high results. None of those drivers above showed any signs of being impaired, though the first two people who have been transitioned from the oral fluid testing process to the compulsory impairment testing process, both of those first two were from CVST. And we think over time what will happen is, generally the police don't recruit from pools of society where there's a tremendous amount of illegal drug use. So there's a lot of these staff are catching up on what drugged people actually look like. And we've, just like alcohol in the early days, some people can hold it together for a minute or 2 minutes, but the longer you deal with them face to face, we expect to see more people go, that's what drug looked like. And we'll maybe see more of that CIT work coming through. And as far as the industry goes, I think it's been fairly well publicised within the industry. We had a 24/7 operation last week at Bombay, and we did hundreds of oral fluid tests there. We do have a deployment plan to make sure that the application of oil fluid testing is fair and representative of the whole industry and all drivers on the road. So we don't have a system where we just focus on forestry trucks or scaffolding trucks or delivery trucks. We have a system where we have an agreed process where the trucks come in the gate, and we stick to that. So that system could be the first 3 trucks in every hour, or it could be we're going to focus on all the trucks that have work time offences. We're going to look at those drivers. So we actually have a process. There's no targeting of this. We want to make sure that the entire industry are aware that whether you're long haul or short haul or forestry or scaffolding or whatever you're doing, if you come through the gate of a commercial vehicle safety centre or get stopped by a CVST constable, you have a good chance that you will be oil fluid tested. Everyone who's stopped by police is breath tested, and we undertake about 10,000 breath tests a day in the New Zealand Police. Oil fluid testing, we're starting off small, and the numbers we're doing a day are in the hundreds, not the thousands. So, that's the numbers we're looking at. So we want to make sure that we are focusing on getting the coverage as wide as we can, so everyone knows that that message is out there. Next slide. What happens if your driver is forbidden to drive? Brian might mention it later, but we sat down and came up with a process for what happens when a driver fails at oil fluid testing. Because when you fail an oil fluid test, you have a saliva sample taken, and that gets sent away, and then you undergo a second oil fluid test. And if you fail both of those, you're forbidden to drive for 12 hours. Because you actually haven't committed an offence at that point, we don't give any disclosures as to why, but we will tell operators if a driver is forbidden to drive for 12 hours, and they can work out the rest themselves. Also, if you refuse the test, you get forbidden for 12 hours as well. The reason for forbidden won't be disclosed to the operator. Police will not share tests with roadside, will not share the results of roadside screening tests with the operators. That's our privacy, for the privacy of drivers. But in reality, we have seen already this play out in real time. We've had a driver refuse the test. He got dropped back to his depot by CVST, and the boss asked 2 questions. Why did the police drop you off here? And where's your truck? So the investigation is pretty quick and pretty short, and that was the guy who had subsequent work drugs tests as well. So yeah, that's what we're looking at, and that's where we're at the moment. So overall, good news. The drug, there hasn't apparently been a huge spike in positive tests in the commercial industry, which kind of runs a bit contrary to some of the anecdotal stuff you hear out on the tracks. So that's good, and I think it's a good news story for the industry. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, that was the only question that we had about whether companies will be notified. So that's quite a common question that actually we have had from our members.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, I will now hand over to our next speaker, Senior Sergeant Brian Anderson, also from the CVST, and he's going to talk to us about what's happening with the new 50 Max pro forma enforcement. Brian, do you want to share your screen?
Thanks, Mark. See.
Yes, we've got that now. Thanks, Brian.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. Brian Anderson, I'm the National Advisor for Standards and Training for CVST. been in the role for a few months now. This is my first foray into the public arena, so forgive my monotone. Hopefully I won't bore you to tears. And today, of course, is fortuitous. It's 50 Max Day. So from today, the 50 Max permits are no longer required, and there's been a lot of work going on in the background to get to this point. Most of it's not new. It's just slightly changed about how we have to go about things. So there's been quite a bit of learning, and we've been working hard with our partners to find efficiencies where possible. So we've been flat out delivering training to our teams, and we're working on the efficiency will improve as our teams get through some stops and get used to the new system. So I'll bring up some slides shortly, but if basically if you just ask you to work with us with the stops, producing the correct pro formas will be a big thing, and that'll help expedite the stop. At the end of the day, we're after compliance. That's what us and our partners at NZTA are after, and the industry wants a level playing field, so they want people to comply as well. Today's presentation is not about all the technical info in regards to the system. It's just a bit of an overview about what to expect roadside or at a CVST if your vehicle's stopped there. So I'll just move into the next slide. So you can expect longer delays during a stop for a 50 Max combination. Timeframes are a bit up in the air at the moment, but we're expecting initially perhaps 15 minutes extra delay, even if the vehicle is compliant. It will take longer for us to determine compliance. Police need to identify what the combination is and how we're going to deal with it and check if it matches the 50 Max pro forma. As I said before, producing the correct 50 Max pro forma will go a long way to moving things along faster. So the industry really need to have an understanding of what pro forma they're operating on and ensure that the drivers do too. Unfortunately, you can expect substantially longer delays if the vehicle is non-compliant, or if there's a difficulty in identifying the vehicle designs, or if there's an incorrect or no 50 Max pro forma produced. Just move my screen here so I can see my slide there, Mark. Police advise that operators carry their 50 Max permits even after they expire, but only if they relate to the vehicles they're using and they match a current pro forma, the ones that are published on the NZTA website. That will help reduce time roadside the police stops. So if at any stage of a journey you're operating as a 50 Max combination, you need to comply with the 50 Max rules, carry the correct pro forma, and produce that if stopped by police. Some slight changes to the old regime. You are a 50 Max vehicle wherever you go, unless you're operating on an HPMV permit. With a 50 Max vehicle, if you breach any weight or dimension limits, then you commit 50 Max offences, and we're subject to those penalties no matter where you are, and even below 46 tonnes. So if empty or below 46 tonnes, then the pro forma is still required to cover your dimension issues, generally over length. Operating on HPMV when stopped, then produce those permits for weight and dimension, and that will help reduce the time involved there. So we don't need to go down the 50 Max road, we'll deal with the HPMV side of it. Now the transition period, this finishes when your permit expires or November 6th, whichever's sooner. But we encourage people to ensure that they are operating on current pro formas, the current designs on the system, and if you're not, then move to those designs when you can and get the right proformas, or look at other options, because you may be required to move to an HPMV permit if you can't meet one of the new proformas. The proforma document's now 4 pages. Page 4 is purely for the operator to use as an aid. There's places for registration numbers and things like that. It's about helping you and the drivers establish which vehicles you're going to be using on that proforma. It's not required by law. I think that's been a question that's come up quite a bit. The H signs are not required for 50 max, but they're still required for HPMV. And contact NZTA for further info regarding the 50 max stuff there. Just stop sharing that, and there's just one thing that's missed out of that slide there that we haven't talked about yet, and it was supposed to be in the slides, is that the penalty regime has changed slightly from the old 50 max and HPMV permits. And aside from the failing to produce a pro forma offence, then all other breaches are looking at a fine for an infringement fee of $2,000. So that's something that industry need to be aware of. Please encourage the industry to produce the correct pro forma. Remember, the onus is on you to supply this in the correct format and correct configuration so it matches. You can help us to help you and move things along faster by complying and producing those correct pro formas. And as we work through and get more experienced with it, and the operators become more experienced with it, the inefficiencies and the time will decrease, so that you know, we'll get better at this, as the industry will too. So it's a bit of a work together on this and move things along as quick as we can. Is there any questions on that, Mark?
Yes, thanks, Brian. I feel sure there must be questions from the audience, and we do have one that has come through, so I'll read that out. So there are currently some older 50 max proformas for which there are not new proformas available, or they exceed one of the new proforma measurements. And so how will these be dealt with at the time, even if they have a valid over-length permit being carried?
Right, so if they produce a permit, a 50 max permit that covered them, that is current before the 6th of November, then the permit is fine, but it will expire at that stage, or the expiry date on the permit. So we encourage you to work with NZTA to find an alternative, either an alternative pro forma, but I understand that you might be outside of that, so then you may be looking at HPMV permits in regard to those units, but that is something to be dealt with by NZTA in regards to that one.
Okay, thanks. Next question is, would it make more sense to complete the 4th page with the dimensions?
That is, as I said, it's entirely for the aid of the operator. Roadside or a CVST, we still will be needing to check that the vehicle complies with the pro forma. So at this point in time, we won't be putting any value on that 4th page for enforcement purposes.
Thanks. Now, another one is, if there is a breach of condition, what is the basic or standard weight limit that will be enforced?
Right. So if it's the same as at the moment, if you're on a 50 max route and you are a 50 max vehicle, then whichever weight limit applies to you at the time in regards to your length from first axle to last axle. That will be your weight limit. Operators should be aware of what that is before they leave the yard. For not being on a 50 max road, then the weight limit's back to general access limits for the mass.
And we have another question, I think similar to the one before. So there's a 22 metre B train permit that isn't covered by the new pro formas due to being discontinued, but there are a lot of these in use. So what should the operators do?
Yeah, again, if it's not an old, if it doesn't match a current pro forma, then you'll need to work with NZTA to work out what the next steps are in regards to that. Come the end of the transition period, as I said, as soon as your 50 max permit expires or the 6th of November, then those permits will be no longer valid and you'll have to be operating on some other form of system. Does that answer that one, Mark?
Yes, it does. And we have had some other questions like that. So I would say to the participants, if you do have scenarios like that, please contact the Transporting New Zealand team. So myself, my email is going to be at the end of this presentation, but otherwise contact your membership manager with those queries, and we will collate them and we will raise them with NZTA as we have been doing during this process. And another question is, what are the actual penalties for the breaches? What if there are multiple breaches? Could you summarise those, Brian?
Technically, you could be facing all of those breaches, but we will be working on a policy of fairness in regards to that. So we'll look at each stop as it comes up. We understand that those penalties are slightly different to what they've been used to with the other permitting regimes. So we'll be monitoring that and working through that carefully in regards to each stop.
Thanks. And another question, a good one that's been asked, which is worth clarifying. Can the pro forma be presented on a tablet electronically?
So yes, just as it is now with the permits, electronically is fine. It's just got to be in a readable format. So we need to know which one you're operating on. We won't be accepting all 3 pro formas for B trains handed to us at once. We need to know which one you're operating on at the time. So advice would be to make that very clear to the drivers what they're operating on.
Okay, no more questions have come through, but please do add more to the chat and we can answer those later on. So one more has just come through, so we'll go with that. So question is, can you bring back the inspection sticker to notify officers that the unit has been checked in the past 7 days to increase efficiencies?
That's something that has to be discussed at different levels, but I would hazard a guess and say that that's not likely to happen. But that's something you guys could bring up and we can look at again.
Thank you. All right, look, thank you very much, Brian. As I said, any more questions, put them in the chat. We'll come back to them. But now what I'm going to do is I will hand over to our third speaker, Mark Owen, who is the NZTA Regional Manager, Maintenance and Operations. And Mark is going to give us an update on some Wellington or Greater Wellington region projects, including the imminent opening of the Mackays Crossing Commercial Vehicle Safety Centre. So with that, I'll hand over to you, Mark, if you would like to share your screen.
Thanks, Mark. Afternoon, everybody. Hope you're enjoying this session. Just checking that you can see my presentation.
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Cool. just for clarity, I represent the highway arm of NZTA. So we're a big organisation. Lots of the questions that are coming in relating to vehicles are part of our regulatory team. I'm happy to take those on and pass them on, but I'm just going to give you a highway perspective today. So as Mark said, I'm the M&O highway manager for Wellington and Top of the South. And I want to talk to you today about the new Commercial Vehicle Safety Centre, and also just give you a snapshot of some of the projects that we've got on the go in the Wellington region. So let's try to get this presentation to change slides. There we go. Okay, so for those of you that are out on the network, we are replacing the Plymonton way stations with this new facility at Mackays Crossing. So there's a nice photo of it there. Basically, all the physical works are complete. We've just got some remaining work to finish the calibration and commissioning and testing of all the equipment. And it'll have the full weigh and motion scales and static configuration with cameras and bits and pieces on Saturday 1, and I'll show you a little map of that at the moment. And all things being equal, we are aiming to open this late August in 2026, so later this month. And it really is pretty similar to what we've got at Ohakia. It's the site between Sanson and Bulls, and you'll start to see these around the country. It'll be pretty standard layout and format in terms of the facilities that we're providing for the police to do the enforcement. Here's just a plan of the site, just so there's sort of a fenced area that contains the Waihi Bridge itself and the building and associated facilities that go with that. Then there's some sort of 8 inspection bays where vehicles can park up, and there's also an inspection shed where we can go in there, take the vehicle in there, and there's a pit there that they can go and look under the vehicle. Outside the fenced area, you'll see there's off to the left, there's an offload area. So if you do need to offload, there is a hard stand area there where vehicles will be able to park up and modify their loads if they're required to. So as I said, the centre is located at Mackays Crossing. So this is between Paikakariki and the Kapiti Coast. It's near the railway overcrossing there. For vehicles travelling northbound, the first thing you will notice is there'll be a weigh and motion set of scales in the road surface. And then if they are triggered, there's an electronic overhead gantry that will light up. And then you'll be required to move into the Commercial Vehicle Safety Centre. Same happens with southbound, and also the same happens on State Highway 59 if you're coming in from the Paikakariki end. And what will happen is when you go into the centre, the police will work through your vehicle and driver compliance issues. But then as you leave the centre, this is where it's a little bit tricky. All vehicles will be required to exit and turn right as you come out back onto what is State Highway 59. And this is because of some of the challenges we have with some of the consenting requirements around the Mackays Crossing itself. So there's a narrow underpass under State Highway 1 at Mackays Crossing. It's got a footpath there, and it's can take horses as well. So there's quite strict requirements around using that access. So we're encouraging all vehicles to turn right and then rejoin State Highway 51 or State Highway 59 at the Paikakariki interchange. And what's best is probably if you just go onto our website, there's a more detailed map that shows you the various ways you can access the site, rather than sort of I'm trying to explain it here. Really encourage you to use the links in this presentation, and that will take you to some maps that show you exactly how to access and how to exit the new centre. Any questions, please don't hesitate to ask us. You can go to our website. It's got various ways of how you can contact us, or simply you can send us an email, info@nzta.gov.nz. And based on some of those earlier questions to police, if you do have a specific vehicle one, there is a different email address, modernising vehicle certifications, all one word, at nzta.gov.nz. So if you have something specific that you want to talk about your vehicle configuration, then you can just use that email, or you're welcome to go via the general email, whatever suits. So that covers our new facility, and we'll obviously be decommissioning the Plymonton sites. And once the site goes live, it'll be one of the more modern centres that we're operating across New Zealand on our highway network. Now I'm just going to flick over to a regional update, just to give you a snapshot of some of the projects that we've got underway. I'm sure you'll be familiar with the project that's happening at Melling, originally called the Riverlink project, but in terms of NZTA, we've got some deliverables around building a new interchange, a bridge over the Hutt River into the Hutt CBD. You will have noticed we've moved the train station, and we've got some park and ride facilities and walking and cycling links. So that's all part of that wider Te Waitakere o Te Awa Kairangi program of work that's working with Greater Wellington and Hutt City, and we're working that in partnership. And just for your benefit, we do have a Hutt Valley Transportation Coordination Group, so we are conscious that this has an impact on people's travel, particularly obviously for those that are taking freight. So we are monitoring that. We welcome any feedback. We know it will be disruptive, so we're signalling that. So time of day is going to be important as they work through the different phases of that project. There will be impacts, but our focus certainly is trying to keep the highway open as best we can, at least to 2 lanes in peak. But you can imagine building a bridge and interchange is not going to be straightforward. So we'll keep signalling what the impacts of that might be. And just some stats, they've started work, obviously. They've done a lot of ground improvement works. They've removed the railway station. They've started to upgrade some intersections in the Hutt CBD. A lot of the impact has been underground in terms of locating power, fibre, gas, and doing the water activities, all those utilities. And they've had to remove some hazardous substance materials as well. So quite complex, but you'll start to see it come above ground shortly. Next project we want to talk about is on State Highway 58. So this is the work that's happening from Moonshine Road through to Flighties. We have constructed 2 new roundabouts. We'll have a new median barrier going in. We're widening the bridge through there, which will make it safer, and obviously doing all the facilities and upgrading the culvert and drainage systems as well. So this is like the 3rd phase of the work. We started obviously at the State Highway 2 end. Now we're getting close to the Transmission Gully motorway end, and this is due for completion in 2027. And then further north on State Highway 1, we've obviously got the Aotaki to north of Levin project. So this is really going great guns. It's what we call a greenfield, so it's basically off alignment. But they're working on 18 kilometres of the new alignment at the moment. You can see there's quite a significant volume of material they've moved. A lot of sediment ponds and construction that's ready for the main build, putting in all the culverts. You'll see there we've relocated approximately 11,000 fish. I would have believed that was that many fish up in that area. Lizards obviously protected as well. And as the photo shows you there, we've made significant progress on some of the key structures that'll then take the final road. And all things being equal, that's due to open in 2029. It will make a significant difference for access on that State Highway 1 up to the north and towards Palmerston North. And last slide is just to let you know that we've obviously got a significant maintenance program happening across the highways. So this just gives you a list of some of the sites that we'll be working on over the summer period. A lot of the work starts or happens in the Wairarapa, some of those town centres, Carterton, Greytown and Marston Solway. And then we've got a bit of work happening on some of the motorway on and off ramps and activity happening in the Wellington area. Again, all this stuff's available on our website. We'll give you regular updates as and when things are happening. A lot of it does happen at night. I know a lot of freight travels at night. So, yeah, just keep an eye out for that work and what options you have in terms of potential detours or potential delays. That's my presentation. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, Mark, for your short and succinct presentation. Much appreciated. Somewhat surprisingly, we're actually ahead of time and we don't have any questions for you, Mark, right now, but actually I've got one which I'll ask as a user of State Highway 2. As I'm travelling past the Melling area, there is a speed reduction on State Highway 2. I think it's 70 kilometres an hour. There are no works actually occurring on the highway itself, but obviously there are the works in the Melling area in the Hutt. And I just wonder whether you might be able to explain why it is that there is a speed reduction on the highway.
Yeah, good question, Mark. And this is something that's quite hard to sometimes explain to road users as you're travelling. what they would have done is done an assessment of the hazards and risks. And quite often the reduction is because of things that have changed the layout, or more importantly, southbound, we've got 50K, and that's because we've reduced the lanes. So, I mean, and freight drivers will know this. You'd like a nice wide 3.75 metre wide lane. Where we've had to reduce that, and particularly some areas where you've got the presence of cyclists, we do lower the speed to make it safe for all highway users. So through that area, it'll be because of either the layout and the configuration. The team that are doing the build do a risk assessment under the New Zealand Guide to Temporary Traffic Management. They make an assessment, and if they feel that it's unsafe because of the change or the narrowing of lanes or any hazards, that's why we have a reduced speed. And it may not be obvious, but it'll be because of that perceived risk.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Now we do have a few more questions that have come up. These are mostly relating to 50 Max. So Brian, I'll bring you back in. One of them that's just popped up, and I think probably it is for Brian. That is, but relating to Mackays Crossing. And so the question is, will there be any leniency for trucks travelling south to meet a ferry crossing time? I think probably, Brian, that is one for you.
It is one for me. I'm not particularly au fait with Mackays. I haven't been there. But I understand the question might be in line with if you're getting held up for a check and you're struggling to get to the ferry on time, that has to be factored into your journeys. It is part of business, and while we try not to hold anyone up any longer than we have to, that's just the way it works out sometimes. So I understand that that's not helpful for business, but we have to check compliance. So essentially, I think the answer is no to that one.
Okay, thanks. Now, another 50 Max query. Actually, this is relating to H plates. And we know that, in fact, H plates are going to be removed, although there isn't a time frame for that. But the question is relating to the fact that you mentioned that H plates won't be required for the 50 Max. And the question is, if units are swapping between 50 Max and HPMV, would it be legal for them to then just display the H plate all the time, or does it need to be removed when it's 50 Max?
The technical answer is it shouldn't be displayed when you're not HPMV, but I'd be interested to hear if someone has had a ticket in recent times in regards to that.
Okay, another question is to do with the weigh in motion sites, and currently they show the current permits, and moving forward there won't be a permit for them to refer to. So will the stops just happen randomly if they appear to be running 50 tonnes?
No, so they've built in some what they call rules around the what the vehicles will be picked up for, and they've adjusted that for that 50 Max realm in regards to spacings and weights and the fact that the permits are gone. So it has been accounted for in the vehicle screening system.
Great. And another good question that does get asked sometimes. Do the weigh in motion also look at non-commercial vehicles like motorhomes, caravans, and motorists potentially pulling overloaded trailers?
The weigh in motion system will pick up any vehicle that it considers as a heavy motor vehicle. So some of those overloaded trailers and things could be pulled into that system only if they're over 3.5 tonne. Heavy motor vehicles that are motorhomes, etc., are still part of the system and could well be pulled in and are required to stop if it's an all truck stop sign.
Okay, thanks. And thanks to Tom Logan, who's put an answer in there relating to the H signs. He's put an answer into the chat. Nice to see you there, Tom. We don't appear to have any more questions, so Last chance, everybody. We're actually ahead of time, so thank you to the presenters for your presentations, and nice, short and snappy. I was expecting we'd have a few more questions about the new 50 Max Pro formers, because certainly we've been getting quite a few in the office, and you'll see on the screen my email address. So if anyone has any queries, do send them through either to my email or, as I said, contact your Transporting New Zealand membership manager, and we'll certainly collate those questions and raise them with NZTA. And as I mentioned, this presentation and the recording will be posted on our portal early next week. So I can't see any more questions. So thanks everyone for participating. And I'm going to bring this webinar. Now hang on, sorry, there is a question that's just popped up. Again, to do with 50 Max. How do the new Proformers cover older gear? I'm not quite sure about that question. Does it make sense to you, Brian?
Yeah, so there will be some older 50 Max units that are operating with a permit currently that are aligned to an old Proform, which are discontinued. As I say, they're good to go while that permit is current or until the 6th of November. But today, my advice would be you need to look at moving towards a new Proformer. If you don't fit one of those, then you need to be talking to NZTA about what the other options are.
Which, as you suggested, that might be HPMV. But as I said, I think those questions, by all means, send them through to us at Transporting New Zealand so we can raise them with NZTA. In fact, we have sent questions like that to NZTA and we are seeking an answer because we know that there are proof that the new Proformers don't cover some older combinations. So I can't see any more questions. So I am going to, oh no, look at that. Every time I try and do that, someone posts a question. Now I'll read it out. So there's beat trains, etc., with a 1360 spread on a tri group, not 1500. There are huge numbers out there. No, I'm not sure what the question is, but I think obviously, yeah, there are a lot of older permits out there that haven't been transferred to the new Proformers. Yeah, we're aware of that, and we're talking to NZTA. I'm going to bring this webinar to a close. Thank you again to our 3 speakers. Thank you to everyone for participating. Don't hesitate to get hold of Transporting New Zealand if you've got any questions about this webinar. Thank you very much.